Hello everyone, welcome back to Buried Files. Tonight we venture into the fluorescent lit aisles and sprawling parking lots of America's retail giant to bring you 8 of the most disturbing encounters ever whispered about after closing time. Each account you will hear has been carefully extracted from the testimonies of employees and customers who found themselves face to face with terror in the most ordinary of places. These are not fabricated tales spun for entertainment, but rather chilling recollections drawn from incident reports, witness statements, and the haunted memories of those who lived through these encounters. The retail environment that millions consider mundane and safe becomes something far more sinister when darkness falls and isolation takes hold. To protect the privacy and safety of those brave enough to share their experiences, names and certain identifying details have been altered. But the disturbing truth at the heart of each story remains untouched. From late-night stalkers prowling the parking lots to predators masquerading as customers. From overnight employees discovering evidence of unspeakable crimes to shoppers becoming prey in their own neighborhood stores. These testimonies reveal the hidden dangers lurking beneath the veneer of suburban convenience. If you are new to Buried Files, make sure to subscribe for daily true horror content that will forever change how you view the places you shop. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we unearth the next collection of buried truths, because some stories only surface when the world is ready to listen. Working the graveyard shift at Walmart in Tucson seemed like easy money for Dakota Martinez, a 19-year-old college student who needed flexible hours. The overnight position at the Supercenter on Valencia Road paid well enough to cover her rent, and the quieter environment meant she could sometimes get her homework done during breaks. Most nights were predictable, restocking shelves and helping the occasional late-night shopper find what they needed. Dakota had been working there for 3 months when she first noticed him. It was a Tuesday night in October when the man first appeared in her section. She was restocking feminine hygiene products in aisle G14 when she became aware of someone watching her. When she looked up, she saw a middle-aged man standing at the end cap, pretending to examine a display of pain relievers. He was probably in his 40s, average height with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses that caught the fluorescent light. Nothing particularly threatening about his appearance, but something in the way he lingered made her uncomfortable. Dakota tried to shake off the feeling and continued her work. When she finished that aisle and moved to the next one over to restock shampoo, the man followed. He would pick up random items, pretend to read labels, but his attention was clearly on her movements. She noticed he never actually put anything in a basket or cart, just wandered, watched, and waited. The store manager, Luis Herrera, was making his rounds when Dakota flagged him down near the pharmacy. She explained about the customer who seemed to be following her through her assigned sections. Luis took a quick look around the store but did not see anyone matching the description. He told Dakota that sometimes people had insomnia and just walked around the store to pass time, but if she felt unsafe, she should radio for assistance immediately. The man disappeared before her shift ended at 6 in the morning, and Dakota almost convinced herself she had been overreacting. College stress, too much caffeine, her imagination running wild during the quiet hours. She finished her shift, clocked out, and drove home to her apartment complex without incident. But he came back the next night, and the night after that. By the end of her first week of being followed, Dakota had established a pattern. The man would arrive sometime between 1 and 2 in the morning, always entering through the main entrance near the grocery section. He would spend the first hour of his visit browsing legitimate items, sometimes even making small purchases. Batteries, snacks, household items, enough to blend in with other late-night customers. But once Dakota began her restocking duties around 2:30, he would abandon his shopping pretense and begin his surveillance. He was methodical about it, never got close enough to be overtly threatening, never tried to initiate conversation, never blocked her path or trapped her in any aisles. He maintained what might have looked like a respectful distance to any casual observer. But Dakota knew the difference between coincidence and predatory behavior. This man was studying her, learning her routines, mapping her movements through the store. She reported the pattern to Luis, who promised to review the security footage. 2 days later, he called Dakota into his office before her shift started. Luis had indeed seen the man on multiple nights, but his behavior did not rise to the level of trespassing or harassment from a legal standpoint. The customer was making purchases, was not disturbing other shoppers, and had not made any inappropriate contact with employees. Corporate policy required more concrete evidence of threatening behavior before they could ban someone from the premises. Dakota felt a chill settle in her stomach. She explained that this felt different, that her instincts were screaming danger, but Luis could only shrug sympathetically. His hands were tied unless the situation escalated. He offered to adjust her schedule to different sections of the store, but that would mean a cut in hours since those positions were already staffed. Dakota could not afford the loss of income, so she declined. The following Thursday brought the escalation Luis had mentioned. Dakota was working in the electronics department, spider wrapping video games and reorganizing the locked display cases when the man approached her directly for the first time. "Excuse me, miss." His voice was soft, polite, with a slight lisp that made him sound almost childlike. "I am looking for a specific type of phone case, something protective but not too bulky. I have been watching you work and you seem very knowledgeable about these products." Dakota felt every hair on her arms stand up. The way he said "watching you work" made her skin crawl, but she forced herself to remain professional. She directed him to the phone accessories display and offered to help him find what he needed. As they walked to the display together, he began asking personal questions. "Do you go to school during the day? That must be exhausting, working all night and attending classes. Where do you go to school? What is your major? Do you live on campus or do you have your own place?" Dakota answered vaguely, keeping her responses brief and impersonal. She found him a basic black phone case and started to walk away, but he continued the conversation. "I really admire your work ethic. Not many young people are willing to work these overnight shifts. It takes a special kind of dedication. I bet your boyfriend is proud of you for being so independent." That last comment felt like fishing, trying to determine if she was in a relationship, if someone might be looking for her if she did not come home. Dakota excused herself and radioed for Luis to come to electronics. By the time the manager arrived, the man had vanished again. Luis found Dakota in the break room 20 minutes later, visibly shaken. She explained the encounter, emphasizing how the questions felt like an interview, like he was gathering information about her personal life. Luis said he would make sure to keep an eye on the electronics section for the rest of the night, but again reminded Dakota that asking questions was not illegal, even if it felt uncomfortable. The man did not approach her again that night, but Dakota noticed him watching from a distance. He had purchased the phone case she recommended, and now he had a legitimate reason to have interacted with her if anyone questioned his presence near electronics. She realized he was escalating gradually, testing boundaries, seeing how much attention his behavior would draw from management. Over the next 2 weeks, the man became bolder. He began timing his visits to coincide with Dakota's breaks, appearing in the employee area whenever she went to get food from the vending machines or step outside for fresh air. The employee entrance was supposedly secure, requiring a badge to enter, but he would loiter in the parking area just outside the doors. When Dakota took her 30-minute break at 3 in the morning, he would be there, smoking cigarettes and scrolling through his phone. One night, he struck up a conversation as Dakota was heading back inside. He commented on how cold it was getting and asked if she had a warm coat for walking to her car after her shift. The question felt loaded, like he was trying to determine what time she got off work and whether she might be vulnerable in the parking lot. Dakota lied and said her boyfriend picked her up every morning, then quickly badged back into the store. But the man was not deterred by the mention of a boyfriend. If anything, it seemed to encourage him. The next night, he asked if her boyfriend worked nights too, since it was unusual for someone to be available for pickup at 6 in the morning. He said he had noticed she seemed tired lately and hoped she was taking care of herself. The false concern in his voice made Dakota nauseous. She began varying her break times, hoping to disrupt his pattern, but he adapted quickly. No matter when she stepped outside, he appeared within minutes. It was as if he was monitoring the employee entrance from somewhere with a clear view, timing his approach to coincide with her appearances. The breaking point came on a particularly slow Wednesday night in November. Dakota was working alone in the grocery section, facing products and checking expiration dates, when she heard footsteps in the adjacent aisle. She assumed it was Luis making his rounds or perhaps another employee restocking. But when she peered around the end cap, she saw the man standing there with his phone pointed in her direction. The screen was clearly displaying the camera function, and he was holding it at an angle that would capture her bending over to check lower shelves. When he realized she had seen him, he quickly switched the phone to what appeared to be a text message and pretended to be typing. But Dakota had seen enough. She immediately radioed for Luis and followed the man at a distance as he quickly made his way toward the front of the store. This time, she was not going to let him disappear before management could intervene. She watched him head toward the self-checkout area, and she positioned herself where she could keep him in sight while waiting for Luis to arrive. But instead of checking out, the man walked past the registers and headed for the main exit. As he approached the doors, he turned back toward Dakota and smiled. It was not a friendly expression. It was the smile of someone who knew he had been caught but was not concerned about the consequences. He walked outside, and Dakota watched through the glass doors as he got into a dark sedan in the parking lot. Luis arrived just as the car was pulling away. Dakota explained what she had witnessed, and this time Luis agreed that photographing employees without consent crossed the line into harassment. He promised to file a report with corporate security and contact the local police to make them aware of the situation. The next night, Dakota arrived at work to find 2 police officers waiting to speak with her. They had reviewed the security footage from the past several weeks and confirmed the pattern of behavior she had described. The man had been visiting the store specifically during her shifts, following her through her work areas, and appeared to be documenting her routines. Unfortunately, since the photography had taken place in a public business, it was not technically illegal, but they would increase patrols in the area and had flagged the license plate of the vehicle he had been driving. Dakota felt somewhat relieved that her concerns were finally being taken seriously, but that relief was short-lived. The man did not return to the store for 3 days, and she allowed herself to hope that the police intervention had scared him off. But on Saturday night, her sense of security was shattered completely. Dakota was leaving work at the end of her shift, walking across the employee parking lot to her car, when she noticed the same dark sedan parked in the shadows near the dumpsters. Her heart rate spiked as she realized the man had been waiting for her, learning her schedule well enough to anticipate exactly when and where she would be most vulnerable. She immediately turned around and went back into the store, badging through the employee entrance and running to find Luis. She explained that the stalker was waiting outside, and Luis called the police while walking Dakota to the security office where they could monitor the parking lot through the external cameras. The sedan remained in position for another 20 minutes before slowly driving away. The police arrived 30 minutes after Luis had called, too late to intercept the vehicle, but they took a detailed statement and assured Dakota that this level of behavior warranted serious attention from law enforcement. Luis arranged for Dakota to leave through a different exit and offered to have one of the male employees escort her to her car for the rest of the week. But Dakota realized that this man now knew her work schedule, her vehicle, and her vulnerable points. He had escalated from watching to waiting, and she could not shake the feeling that he was planning something more direct. She requested a transfer to day shift, even though it meant a pay cut and fewer hours. Luis approved the change immediately, and Dakota worked her last overnight shift the following Tuesday. As she left that morning, escorted by two male co-workers, she scanned the parking lot carefully for any sign of the dark sedan. She never saw the man again at that location, but 6 months later, Dakota learned from Luis that another young female employee on the night shift had reported being followed by someone matching the same description. The pattern was beginning again, and Dakota realized with sick certainty that she had not been his first target, and she would not be his last. To this day, Dakota checks her rearview mirror obsessively when driving home from work, no matter what shift she is working. She never shops at Walmart alone after dark, and she has never again felt truly safe in any retail environment during overnight hours. The man had stolen more than just her peace of mind during those weeks of stalking. He had taught her how quickly a safe space could become a hunting ground, and how little protection policies and procedures offered when someone decided to make you their prey. Tyler Washington thought collecting shopping carts in the Seattle Walmart parking lot was the most boring job in the world, until he started finding things inside them that were never supposed to be there. At 22 years old, Tyler had worked his fair share of dead-end jobs while figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. The cart attendant position at the Supercenter on Aurora Avenue North paid minimum wage, but it kept him outdoors and away from the fluorescent-lit chaos inside the store. Most days he could put in his earbuds, listen to podcasts, and methodically work his way through the sprawling parking lot, gathering abandoned carts and returning them to the store entrance. It was mindless work, which Tyler appreciated after spending 4 years in college studying computer science, only to graduate into a job market that seemed to have no place for him. Push the carts, check for forgotten items, occasionally help elderly customers load groceries into their vehicles. Simple, predictable, forgettable. The first strange discovery happened on a rainy Thursday morning in late September. Tyler was working the far section of the parking lot near the automotive center when he found a cart that someone had pushed against the concrete barrier separating Walmart from the adjacent strip mall. Nothing unusual about the location. People abandoned carts everywhere despite the cart returns placed strategically throughout the lot. But when Tyler grabbed the handle to add it to his growing train of retrieved carts, he noticed weight in the basket. He looked inside, expecting to find the usual detritus, forgotten reusable bags, or maybe a coffee cup someone had left behind. Instead, he found a shoebox wrapped in several layers of plastic bags and duct tape. Tyler hesitated. Store policy was clear about checking carts for forgotten items before returning them to the corral. But this did not look like something accidentally left behind. The careful wrapping suggested someone had deliberately placed it there, possibly intending to retrieve it later. He looked around the parking lot but saw no one watching or waiting nearby. Common sense told him to bring the box to customer service and let management deal with it, but curiosity won out. Tyler carried the cart to a secluded area behind the automotive bay where he could examine the contents without drawing attention. He carefully peeled away the tape and plastic, trying not to damage whatever was inside. The shoebox contained photographs, hundreds of them printed on regular copy paper rather than photo paper, suggesting they had been taken with a digital camera and printed at home. Tyler flipped through the first few images and immediately wished he had not opened the box. The photographs showed women shopping in the store, Candid shots taken from a distance capturing subjects who were clearly unaware they were being photographed. Women bending over to pick up items from lower shelves, reaching up to grab products from high displays, walking through aisles in clothing that the photographer had apparently found appealing. Some images had been taken in the parking lot showing women loading groceries into their cars or walking across the asphalt. A few showed license plates, and Tyler realized with growing unease that someone had been systematically documenting female customers, possibly tracking their vehicles and shopping patterns. He quickly rewrapped the box and brought it directly to the store manager, explaining where he had found it and what it contained. The manager, Patricia Morales, reviewed the contents with the same disgust Tyler had felt. She immediately contacted the police and secured the evidence in her office while they waited for officers to arrive. The investigating officer explained that this type of voyeuristic photography, while disturbing, was difficult to prosecute unless it had been taken in areas where subjects had a reasonable expectation of privacy. Most of the store and parking lot were considered public spaces. However, the systematic nature of the collection suggested possible stalking behavior, and they would investigate whether any of the photographed individuals had reported feeling followed or harassed. Tyler returned to his cart collection duties that afternoon, feeling unsettled but assuming the incident was over. Someone with a camera and unhealthy obsessions had used the parking lot as a hiding place for their collection, and now law enforcement was handling it. He expected to never think about the shoebox again. But 2 weeks later, he found another one. This cart had been abandoned in the employee parking area, which was unusual since customers were not supposed to access that section. The box was wrapped identically to the first, leading Tyler to believe it was the same person. This time, he did not open it. He brought it directly to Patricia, who called the same officer who had handled the previous case. Officer Jennifer Kim arrived within an hour to collect the evidence. She explained to Tyler and Patricia that the first box had yielded some concerning information. Several of the photographed women had been identified through their license plates, and when contacted, 3 had reported feeling like they were being followed or watched during recent shopping trips. One woman had noticed the same person in multiple aisles during her visits but had not reported it because the behavior had seemed just shy of overtly threatening. The pattern suggested someone was using the Walmart parking lot as a base of operations for stalking female customers, photographing them during their shopping trips, and then stashing the evidence in abandoned carts for later retrieval. The person likely returned during overnight hours when the parking lot was less monitored to collect their hidden materials. Officer Kim asked Tyler to be extra vigilant when checking carts and to immediately report any similar discoveries. She also requested that he pay attention to anyone who seemed to be lingering in the parking lot without shopping, particularly during late evening hours when most of the photographed incidents appeared to have occurred. Tyler agreed to help, though the responsibility made his simple job feel suddenly complicated and potentially dangerous. He started paying more attention to the people around him as he worked, noting which vehicles remained in the parking lot for extended periods and watching for anyone who seemed to be observing rather than shopping. For 3 weeks, he found nothing unusual. No more boxes, no suspicious behavior, no one lurking with cameras. Tyler began to hope that the police investigation had scared off whoever was responsible. Or perhaps they had simply moved their operations to a different location. Then he found the third box and everything changed. This cart was in the main lot, pushed against a light pole near the grocery entrance. The placement was bold, almost brazen compared to the previous hiding spots in more secluded areas. When Tyler picked up the box, it felt different. Heavier, and there was something loose rattling around inside. He brought it to Patricia immediately, but this time she insisted they wait for Officer Kim before opening it. 20 minutes later, the 3 of them gathered in the manager's office to examine the contents. Along with more photographs, this box contained a key. Not just any key, but one clearly cut to fit a Walmart shopping cart lock. The key was attached to a handwritten note that made Tyler's blood run cold. The note read, "Time to upgrade from watching to touching." The blonde girl in the photos marked with red X shops every Tuesday around 7 p.m. She parks in section C and always uses the carts from the front row. I can unlock any cart she chooses. Officer Kim immediately called for backup while Patricia began frantically searching through the photographs to identify the images marked with red X symbols. They found 12 photos of the same woman, a young mother who appeared to shop with 2 small children. The photos showed her typical routine, the section where she parked, the entrance she used, even which checkout lanes she preferred. The note implied that whoever was responsible had figured out how to tamper with shopping cart locks, potentially as a way to force interaction with his target. Tyler realized with horror that he might have been collecting evidence of an escalating stalking situation that was approaching the level of physical assault. Within an hour, the parking lot was crawling with police officers. They reviewed weeks of security camera footage looking for anyone who had been present during the times when the boxes were likely placed and retrieved. They also began the process of identifying and contacting the woman from the marked photographs to warn her about the potential threat. As Tyler watched the investigation unfold, around him he noticed something that made his stomach drop. One of the officers was examining a cart near the grocery entrance, and Tyler could see that the lock mechanism had been tampered with. The metal housing was slightly bent, as if someone had forced tools into it to understand how the locking system worked. He pointed this out to Officer Kim, who immediately called for a technician to examine all the carts in the front rows. What they discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. Nearly 24 carts showed signs of tampering, their locks modified in subtle ways that would allow someone with the right knowledge to unlock them remotely. The person responsible was not just photographing and stalking women. They were actively sabotaging store equipment to create opportunities for forced contact. A woman who found herself with a malfunctioning cart would be vulnerable, likely to accept help from someone who conveniently appeared with a solution to her problem. Tyler realized that his boring job collecting abandoned carts had inadvertently put him at the center of what appeared to be an elaborate predatory scheme. Someone had been using the Walmart parking lot as their hunting ground, and the shopping carts themselves as both hiding places for evidence and tools for assault. The investigation ultimately led to the arrest of a Walmart employee from a different shift, someone who had access to cart maintenance tools and knowledge of customer patterns. The employee had been using his position to identify vulnerable targets and his technical skills to create opportunities for contact. For Tyler, the revelation was devastating. The safe, mindless job that was supposed to give him time to figure out his future had become something sinister. Every cart he collected now felt potentially contaminated. Every person in the parking lot a possible threat or victim. He quit 2 weeks later, unable to shake the feeling that he was constantly being watched as he worked. The parking lot that had once felt open and peaceful now seemed full of hidden dangers and dark intentions. Tyler never returned to that Walmart as a customer, and he could never again see an abandoned shopping cart without wondering what secrets it might be hiding. The case made local news, but Tyler never spoke publicly about his role in the investigation. He found a different job, indoors this time, where the dangers were more predictable and the evidence of human darkness was not hidden in plain sight among the everyday routines of unsuspecting shoppers. Brandon Clark was covering the overnight security shift in Jacksonville when the cameras started showing things that were not supposed to be there. What began as routine equipment malfunction quickly became something far more disturbing than any technical glitch could explain. Brandon had been working security at the Walmart Supercenter on Phillips Highway for 8 months, primarily during overnight shifts when the store was closed to customers. His responsibilities included monitoring the extensive network of security cameras, conducting periodic walking patrols of the building, and ensuring that the handful of overnight employees could work safely while restocking and preparing for the next business day. The job was generally quiet and predictable. Most nights involved watching empty aisles through dozens of camera feeds, occasionally checking on the overnight crew as they moved through their assigned sections, and dealing with minor issues like delivery trucks arriving at the loading dock or maintenance personnel accessing various systems throughout the building. Brandon preferred the overnight shift because it allowed him to work on his online college coursework during the quieter periods. The security office was equipped with multiple monitors displaying feeds from cameras positioned throughout the store, parking lot, and surrounding areas. He had become familiar with the normal rhythms of the overnight operation and could quickly identify anything unusual or potentially problematic. The first sign that something was wrong came during his third week of November. Brandon was reviewing recorded footage from the previous evening when he noticed an anomaly in one of the electronics department cameras. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m., well after the store had closed, and the area should have been completely empty except for the occasional overnight employee passing through. But the footage clearly showed a figure moving through the electronics section. The person appeared to be a middle-aged man wearing casual clothing, browsing the merchandise as if the store were open for business. Brandon checked the employee schedule and confirmed that no one was assigned to work in electronics during that time period. He reviewed additional camera angles to track the person's movements, but the figure seemed to disappear from view whenever Brandon switched to adjacent cameras. The person would be clearly visible on one feed, but when Brandon checked the cameras that should have captured the same individual moving between sections, there was no one there. Brandon initially assumed there was a technical problem with the camera system. Digital surveillance equipment occasionally malfunctioned, creating false images or displaying delayed footage that could create the illusion of people appearing and disappearing. He made a note to contact the maintenance department about potential camera issues and continued his normal duties. But the following night, the same thing happened again. This time, the mysterious figure appeared on multiple cameras throughout the store. The person seemed to be shopping normally, moving through aisles, examining products, and even appearing to place items in a shopping cart that was not visible on the footage. The behavior looked completely routine except for the fact that it was happening at 3:15 a.m. in a locked and supposedly empty building. Brandon tried to track the person's movements in real time, switching between camera feeds to follow the route through the store. But every time he thought he had located the individual on a particular camera, the person would vanish when Brandon switched to the next logical camera angle. More disturbing was the fact that Brandon could not identify how the person had entered the building. He reviewed footage of all the entrances from the time the store closed until the mysterious figure first appeared on camera. But there was no record of anyone entering or leaving. The building's security system showed all doors and windows remained locked and alarmed throughout the night. Brandon contacted his supervisor, Janet Torres, who came in early to review the footage. Together, they watched the recorded video from both nights, and Janet confirmed that she was seeing the same anomalous figure that Brandon had described. She contacted the store manager and the corporate security department to report the potential breach. The corporate security team dispatched a technician to examine the camera system for malfunctions, but all equipment tested normally. The digital recording system was functioning correctly, and there were no signs of tampering or external interference that might explain the mysterious footage. On the third night, Brandon decided to conduct a physical patrol of the store while the figure was appearing on camera. He radioed his position to the overnight manager and began walking through the sections where the cameras were detecting movement. Armed with a flashlight and two-way radio, Brandon methodically searched the electronics department while watching his handheld monitor that displayed the security camera feeds. The handheld monitor showed the mysterious figure moving through the same aisles Brandon was physically walking through, but he encountered no one. He could see on the screen that the person appeared to be examining video game displays just a few feet from Brandon's actual position. But the aisles were completely empty. Brandon tried speaking aloud, asking if anyone was present and explaining that the store was closed. On his handheld monitor, he could see the figure on camera turn toward the sound of his voice, but Brandon saw no response in the physical space around him. The most unsettling moment came when Brandon watched the camera feed show the mysterious person walking directly toward his position. According to the monitor, the figure should have been approaching Brandon from the next aisle over. Brandon positioned himself at the end of the aisle and waited, but no one emerged. When he checked the handheld monitor again, the figure had disappeared from all camera feeds. Janet arrived within 20 minutes of Brandon's radio call, and together they conducted a thorough search of the entire building. Every door remained locked, all windows were secure, and the building's motion sensors in areas not covered by cameras had not been triggered. There was no physical evidence that anyone had been in the store other than authorized personnel. The investigation expanded when Janet discovered that similar incidents had been reported at 3 other Walmart locations in the Jacksonville area over the past 6 months. In each case, overnight security personnel had observed unidentified individuals on camera during closed hours, but physical searches had revealed no intruders. Corporate security brought in a specialist team to examine the camera systems across all affected locations. They found no technical explanations for the phenomena, but they did discover a disturbing pattern in the appearance and behavior of the mysterious figures captured on footage. The person appearing in the Jacksonville store matched descriptions from the other locations. Middle-aged male, casual clothing, normal shopping behavior despite the inappropriate timing and location. More concerning was the discovery that the figure's appearance corresponded with local missing person reports. Detective Maria Santos from the Jacksonville Police Department reviewed the security footage as part of an ongoing investigation into several disappearances in the area. She immediately recognized the individual captured on Brandon's cameras as Marcus Webb, a local resident who had been reported missing 3 months earlier. Marcus Webb had last been seen leaving his apartment on a Tuesday evening, telling neighbors he was going to Walmart to pick up groceries. His car had been found in the parking lot of a different Walmart location the following morning, but there had been no trace of Marcus himself. Security cameras at that store had malfunctioned on the night he disappeared, recording nothing useful for the investigation. The revelation that a missing person was appearing on security cameras months after his disappearance created more questions than answers. Detective Santos expanded her investigation to include the other Walmart locations where similar figures had been observed, and she discovered that each mysterious person matched descriptions of individuals who had disappeared after mentioning plans to shop at Walmart. Brandon continued working his overnight shifts, but the knowledge that he had been watching a missing person on his cameras changed everything about the job. He began paying closer attention to the parking lot cameras, looking for any signs of the vehicles associated with the disappeared individuals. 3 weeks after the Marcus Webb identification, Brandon spotted a familiar car in the overnight parking lot footage. A blue Honda Civic that matched the description of the vehicle driven by Sarah Mitchell, another missing person whose case Detective Santos was investigating. The car appeared on camera at 2:30 a.m., but Brandon could see no one entering or leaving the vehicle. When morning shift employees arrived and the parking lot was searched, the Honda Civic was gone. But the security footage clearly showed it had been present for several hours during Brandon's shift, despite his multiple physical patrols of the parking area where he had seen no vehicles. The investigation ultimately revealed a connection between all the disappeared individuals and a former Walmart maintenance worker who had been terminated 6 months earlier for inappropriate behavior toward female employees. The maintenance worker had retained access to service areas of multiple stores and had been using his knowledge of the building's layouts and security systems to target customers. The mysterious camera appearances were eventually explained as sophisticated technical manipulation. The maintenance worker had been splicing archived footage of his victims into current security feeds, creating the illusion that the missing individuals were still visiting the stores. The psychological impact on security personnel was apparently part of his attempt to cover the trail of his crimes by making the disappearances seem supernatural rather than criminal. Brandon's vigilant reporting had inadvertently provided crucial evidence that led to the arrest of the maintenance worker and the discovery of several victims who had been held captive in abandoned buildings throughout the Jacksonville area. Some were rescued alive, though others had not survived their ordeal. For Brandon, the experience fundamentally changed his relationship with technology and surveillance systems. He learned that what appeared to be objective electronic evidence could be manipulated by someone with sufficient technical knowledge and malicious intent. The cameras that were supposed to provide security and truth had been turned into tools of deception and psychological warfare. He eventually transferred to a different security position, unable to trust the reliability of the camera feeds that had once seemed like straightforward documentation of reality. The case became a training example for security personnel about the importance of combining electronic surveillance with physical verification and the dangers of assuming that technology could not be compromised by determined criminals. The Jacksonville Walmart where Brandon had worked installed additional security measures and changed their overnight protocols to require paired security teams rather than solitary guards. But for Brandon, no amount of additional equipment could erase the memory of watching missing people move through empty aisles, searching for help that would never come. Amanda Thompson was running a routine price check in the electronics section of her Denver Walmart when a customer made a request that changed everything she thought she knew about workplace safety. Working in electronics at Walmart was usually straightforward for Amanda. She had been with the company for 18 months, long enough to know the layout of every product, understand the return policies, and handle most customers can ask questions without needing to call for assistance. The electronics department stayed busy but manageable, with customers looking for phones, video games, televisions, and various accessories that required her to retrieve items from locked displays or provide technical information about products. It was a Tuesday evening in March when the incident occurred. Amanda was working the closing shift, which ran until 11 p.m., and the store was beginning to quiet down as the dinner rush ended and foot traffic decreased. She was restocking phone cases in the mobile accessories section when a middle-aged man approached her counter. The customer appeared completely normal at first glance. He was probably in his 40s, dressed in business casual clothing, and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in charge. He explained that he was looking for a specific type of wireless charging pad and wondered if Amanda could help him locate the right product for his needs. Amanda was happy to assist. She showed him the selection of charging accessories and began explaining the differences between various models, their compatibility with different phone brands, and the price points. The customer listened attentively and asked informed questions about charging speeds and device compatibility that suggested he had done some research before coming to the store. After examining several options, the customer selected a mid-range wireless charger and asked Amanda to retrieve it from the locked display case. As she unlocked the case and removed the product, he made what seemed like a reasonable request. The customer explained that he wanted to make sure the charger would work properly with his phone before purchasing it, and he wondered if there was somewhere private where he could test the compatibility without other customers watching. He was concerned about revealing his phone model and potentially sensitive information on his screen in a public area. Amanda initially suggested that he could test the device at the customer service counter, But the customer explained that he had confidential work emails and documents on his phone that he could not risk having visible to other customers or store employees. He asked if there was a back office or storage area where he could quickly verify that the charger worked with his device. The request seemed reasonable to Amanda. Electronics returns were expensive for the store, and preventing a return by allowing a customer to test compatibility made business sense. She had seen other employees accommodate similar requests in the past, and the customer seemed professional and legitimate. Amanda told the customer that she could take him to the electronic storage area behind the main sales floor where he could test the device privately. She unlocked the storage room door and gestured for him to enter ahead of her, planning to supervise the test and then return to the sales floor once he confirmed the product worked properly. The moment Amanda stepped into the storage room behind the customer, the dynamic changed completely. The customer quickly moved to position himself between Amanda and the door, and his demeanor shifted from polite and professional to something that made her immediately uncomfortable. The customer began asking personal questions that had nothing to do with the wireless charger. He wanted to know if Amanda was working alone in electronics that evening, what time her shift ended, whether she had a ride home after work, and if she lived nearby. His tone remained conversational, but there was an underlying intensity that made Amanda realize she had made a serious mistake by entering an isolated area with a customer she did not know. Amanda tried to redirect the conversation back to the product, but the customer was no longer interested in the wireless charger. He set the device aside and moved closer to Amanda, commenting on her appearance and asking if she enjoyed working with customers who appreciated her helpfulness. The way he emphasized certain words made it clear that his interest was not professional. When Amanda tried to move toward the door, the customer casually blocked her path while continuing to talk. He explained that he had been watching her work for several weeks and had noticed that she was always very accommodating to customers who needed special assistance. He said he had specifically timed his visit to coincide with her shift and had chosen a product that would require her to access the locked storage area. The realization that this encounter had been planned and that the customer had been observing her work patterns for weeks terrified Amanda. She understood that she was alone in a storage room with someone who had deliberately engineered this situation for purposes she did not want to consider. Amanda told the customer firmly that they needed to return to the sales floor immediately, but he ignored her request and continued talking about how much he admired her customer service skills. He asked if she would be interested in discussing career opportunities over coffee after her shift ended, making it clear that his invitation was not professional despite his choice of words. When Amanda insisted that she needed to get back to the sales floor to help other customers, the customer moved to physically block the door. He explained that he had been planning this conversation for a long time, and that he deserved a few more minutes of her attention after being such a patient and loyal customer. The customer then revealed information about Amanda that he could only have obtained by watching her outside of work. He knew which parking section she used, what kind of car she drove, and which days she worked late shifts. He had clearly been stalking her beyond the confines of the store, and the electronics purchase had been a pretext to get her alone. Amanda realized that she was in immediate danger and that shouting for help might not be effective since the storage room was soundproofed and located away from the main customer areas. She decided to try to de-escalate the situation by pretending to be interested in his conversation while looking for an opportunity to escape. She told the customer that she was flattered by his attention, but that store policy prohibited employees from socializing with customers during work hours. She suggested that they return to the sales floor and that perhaps they could continue their conversation later. Amanda hoped that moving the interaction back to a public area would give her the safety and witnesses she needed, but the customer was not willing to give up his advantage. He explained that he had researched the store's layout and knew that the electronic storage room was not covered by security cameras. He had specifically chosen this location because he could have an extended private conversation with Amanda without being recorded or interrupted. The knowledge that he had planned this encounter in such detail, including identifying the blind spots in the store's surveillance system, convinced Amanda that she was dealing with someone who had experience with predatory behavior. This was not an impulsive advance by a socially awkward customer, but a calculated assault by someone who had done this before. Amanda decided that her only option was to physically push past the customer and get to the door before he could stop her. She waited for a moment when he was gesturing and seemed slightly off balance, then quickly moved toward the exit while loudly calling for help. The customer grabbed her arm to prevent her from leaving, but Amanda continued shouting and managed to activate the door handle. The commotion attracted the attention of a male employee who was working in the adjacent stockroom, and the sound of approaching footsteps caused the customer to release his grip on Amanda's arm. When the other employee arrived, Amanda quickly explained that she needed assistance with a difficult customer situation. The customer immediately reverted to his polite demeanor and claimed that there had been a simple misunderstanding about the product testing. He thanked Amanda for her help and said he had decided not to purchase the wireless charger after all. Amanda watched the customer leave the storage area and walk quickly toward the store exit without making any purchase. She reported the incident to her supervisor and provided a detailed description of the customer and his behavior. The supervisor reviewed security footage of the encounter, but as the customer had planned, the cameras had not captured any of the threatening behavior that occurred in the storage room. The investigation revealed that the same customer had visited the store on multiple occasions over the past month, always during Amanda's shifts, and had made small purchases while observing her work patterns. Security footage showed him watching her from adjacent aisles and timing his approaches to coincide with periods when she was working alone. Store management changed their policies to prohibit employees from taking customers into back office areas without a second employee present, and they increased security patrols in the electronics department during closing shifts. Amanda was offered a transfer to a different department, but she chose to continue working in electronics with the new safety protocols in place. The customer never returned to that Walmart location, but Amanda later learned from police that similar incidents had been reported at other retail stores throughout the Denver area. The pattern suggested a serial predator who targeted young female retail workers and used legitimate customer interactions as opportunities to isolate and assault them. For Amanda, the experience destroyed her trust in customer interactions and made her constantly vigilant about requests that seemed routine but could potentially compromise her safety. She realized that predators could appear completely normal and professional while planning elaborate schemes to create opportunities for assault, and that the retail environment provided numerous ways for customers to exploit the service expectations placed on employees. The incident became part of training materials used to educate retail workers about recognizing potentially dangerous situations and the importance of maintaining safety protocols even when they seem to interfere with customer service. Amanda's quick thinking and willingness to risk seeming rude to a customer had likely prevented a serious assault, and her detailed reporting helped police identify a pattern of predatory behavior that led to the eventual arrest of the individual responsible. Kevin Rodriguez loved the quiet atmosphere when he shopped at his local Detroit Walmart after midnight. The empty aisles, the peaceful silence, the ability to take his time without crowds of other customers. But that night, he was not alone. Kevin worked as a night shift paramedic at Detroit Medical Center, and his schedule meant that most of his errands had to be completed during overnight hours when other people were sleeping. He had discovered that shopping at Walmart between midnight and 3 a.m. provided the perfect environment for his needs. The store was still fully operational with a skeleton crew of employees restocking shelves, but customer traffic was minimal. On Wednesday nights, Kevin usually stopped at the supercenter on Corktown after his shift ended at 11:30 p.m. He would spend an hour or so gathering groceries, household supplies, and anything else he needed for the week. The routine had become comfortable and predictable, allowing him to decompress from the stress of emergency medical work while accomplishing necessary tasks. The night everything changed started like any other. Kevin parked near the main entrance, grabbed a shopping cart, and began his familiar route through the store. He started in the grocery section, methodically working through his list while enjoying the relative quiet of the overnight environment. It was while selecting produce that Kevin first noticed he was being watched. The sensation was subtle at first, just a nagging feeling that someone was paying attention to his movements. When he looked around, he saw only a few employees working in distant aisles and no other customers in the immediate area. Kevin tried to dismiss the feeling and continued shopping, but the sensation of being observed persisted. As he moved from produce to dairy, he began paying more attention to his surroundings. The store's fluorescent lighting created harsh shadows between the aisles, and the hum of refrigeration units masked subtle sounds that might have indicated another person's presence. In the dairy section, Kevin caught a glimpse of movement in his peripheral vision. When he turned to look directly, he saw a figure at the far end of the aisle who appeared to be watching him. The person was too far away for Kevin to make out details, but their posture suggested they were focused on him rather than shopping for products. Kevin decided to test his suspicions by changing his normal shopping pattern. Instead of proceeding to the meat department as he usually did, he turned abruptly and headed toward the pharmacy area. As he made this unexpected detour, he glanced back and saw the same figure beginning to follow, maintaining distance but clearly adjusting their route to match his movements. The follower appeared to be a middle-aged man wearing dark clothing and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. His behavior was not overtly threatening, but there was something deliberately stealthy about the way he moved through the store. He would linger at product displays when Kevin stopped, advance when Kevin continued walking, and consistently maintain visual contact while trying to appear casual. Kevin's medical training had taught him to trust his instincts about potentially dangerous situations. His experience as a paramedic had exposed him to various forms of human behavior, including the warning signs that preceded violent encounters. The way this person was tracking his movements felt predatory rather than coincidental. Deciding to gather more information before taking action, Kevin began deliberately testing the follower's responses. He would stop suddenly, reverse direction, or take unnecessary detours to see if the person would continue to mirror his movements. Each test confirmed that he was being systematically followed by someone who was putting considerable effort into surveillance while trying to remain undetected. Kevin considered approaching store employees for assistance, but the overnight crew was busy with restocking duties and might not be able to provide meaningful help with what could potentially be dismissed as paranoid concerns. He decided to continue shopping while remaining vigilant, hoping that the follower would eventually lose interest and leave him alone. But as Kevin moved through the store, the follower became more aggressive in their surveillance. The person began closing the distance between them, sometimes positioning themselves only one aisle over where they could observe Kevin's activities more closely. When Kevin stopped to examine products, the follower would stop as well, creating an unsettling synchronization of movements. The most disturbing moment came when Kevin was in the electronics section looking at phone accessories. He noticed that the follower had positioned themselves at the end of the aisle with a clear view of Kevin's location. When Kevin looked directly at the person, instead of looking away or pretending to shop, the follower maintained eye contact and smiled. The smile was not friendly or reassuring. It was the expression of someone who enjoyed the fact that Kevin was aware of being watched and felt powerless to stop it. The follower was no longer trying to be subtle about their surveillance, suggesting that the situation was escalating toward some kind of confrontation. Kevin decided that he needed to leave the store immediately, but he was concerned about the vulnerability of walking to his car while being followed by someone whose intentions were unknown. The parking lot was dimly lit and largely empty, providing numerous opportunities for an assault away from witnesses or security cameras. Instead of heading directly to the exit, Kevin decided to seek help from store employees. He approached a young man who was restocking shelves in the grocery section and explained that he was being followed by another customer and felt unsafe. The employee, whose name tag identified him as Marcus, took the concern seriously and radioed for a manager. The overnight manager, Sandra Williams, arrived within a few minutes and asked Kevin to describe the situation. Kevin pointed toward the electronics section where he had last seen the follower, but the person was no longer visible from their current location. Sandra offered to escort Kevin through the store to help identify the individual who had been following him. As they walked toward electronics, Kevin explained the pattern of surveillance he had observed and his concerns about the escalating behavior. Sandra listened carefully and agreed that the situation sounded potentially threatening. When they reached the electronics department, however, the follower had disappeared. Sandra suggested that they check the security office to review camera footage of the incident, but Kevin was reluctant to spend additional time in the store while the follower might still be present. He asked if someone could escort him to his car, and Sandra agreed to walk with him to the parking lot. As they approached the main exit, Kevin saw the follower standing near the customer service desk, apparently waiting. The person made eye contact with Kevin and began walking toward the exit as well, timing their movement to coincide with Kevin's departure from the store. Sandra immediately radioed for additional employees and positioned herself between Kevin and the follower. She asked the person if they needed assistance with anything, but the follower ignored her question and continued walking toward the exit. Sandra tried to engage the person in conversation, but they remained silent and focused on Kevin. In the parking lot, the situation became more clearly threatening. The follower did not go to a parked vehicle, but instead began walking in the direction Kevin was heading. Sandra stayed with Kevin until he reached his car, and she waited while he got inside and locked the doors. As Kevin started his engine, the follower approached his vehicle and stood directly in front of it, preventing him from backing out of the parking space. The person stared through the windshield at Kevin with the same unsettling smile he had displayed inside the store. Sandra immediately called 911 while positioning herself where she could see both Kevin and the follower. She began speaking loudly, asking the person to step away from the vehicle and identify themselves. The follower ignored her commands and continued blocking Kevin's car. Kevin honked his horn to attract additional attention, and the sound brought two other employees out of the store to see what was happening. The presence of multiple witnesses seemed to break the follower's fixation, and the person finally stepped away from Kevin's car and began walking toward the edge of the parking lot. Police arrived within 10 minutes, but the follower had disappeared into the surrounding neighborhood. Kevin provided a detailed description of the person and the surveillance behavior he had observed inside the store. The officers reviewed security footage with Sandra and confirmed that the incident had been captured on camera. The investigation revealed that the same individual had visited the store on previous nights during Kevin's usual shopping times, suggesting that the surveillance had been ongoing for possibly weeks. The person had never made purchases during these visits but had spent extended periods moving through the store in patterns that corresponded with other late-night customers. Security footage from earlier visits showed the follower observing other overnight shoppers, particularly individuals who appeared to be alone and followed predictable routines. The behavior suggested someone who was systematically targeting vulnerable customers for unknown purposes. Kevin never returned to that Walmart location for overnight shopping. The knowledge that he had been unknowingly watched during previous visits made him feel violated and unsafe. He changed his shopping routine to different stores and different times, but the experience fundamentally altered his sense of security during routine activities. The incident report became part of a broader investigation into stalking activities targeting late-night retail customers throughout the Detroit area. Similar patterns of surveillance had been reported at other 24-hour businesses, suggesting that the follower was part of a larger predatory network that used overnight retail environments as hunting grounds for potential victims. For Kevin, the experience served as a reminder that even the most mundane activities could expose him to danger from people who specialized in identifying and exploiting vulnerability. His medical training had prepared him to help others in crisis situations, but it had not prepared him for being the target of systematic surveillance by someone whose intentions remained unknown and potentially violent. The case highlighted the unique vulnerabilities faced by overnight customers at 24-hour retail establishments, where reduced staffing and minimal customer traffic could provide opportunities for predatory behavior. Store security protocols were revised to include more frequent parking lot patrols and increased monitoring of customers who visited repeatedly without making purchases. Sandra Williams, the manager who had assisted Kevin, implemented new training for overnight employees on recognizing and responding to stalking behavior. The incident became a case study used to educate retail workers about the importance of taking customer safety concerns seriously, even when the threatening behavior was subtle and could potentially be dismissed as paranoia. Kevin eventually resumed overnight shopping at different locations, but he never again experienced the relaxed, meditative quality that had originally attracted him to late-night retail environments. The knowledge that predators could be anywhere, watching and waiting for opportunities to exploit the routines of unsuspecting customers, made even the most familiar activities feel potentially dangerous. Melissa Rodriguez had dealt with difficult returns at the Walmart customer service desk in Phoenix, but nothing prepared her for what Mrs. Henderson brought back that Saturday afternoon. Working customer service at Walmart for nearly 2 years had exposed Melissa to every kind of human behavior imaginable. Angry customers screaming about receipts, confused elderly shoppers trying to return items purchased at completely different stores, teenagers attempting to fraud the system with stolen merchandise. She had developed a thick skin and a professional demeanor that could defuse most situations before they escalated. But Mrs. Henderson was different from the moment she approached the counter. The woman appeared to be in her late 60s with stark white hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of her surroundings. She moved with purpose, pushing a shopping cart filled with an eclectic assortment of items that immediately caught Melissa's attention. Boxes of cereal, cleaning products, frozen food packages, and several nearly empty containers of personal hygiene products. What struck Melissa first was the smell. A strange combination of chemical odors, mildew, and something vaguely metallic that seemed to emanate from both Mrs. Henderson and her cart. It was subtle but persistent, clinging to the air around the customer service desk like an invisible cloud. Mrs. Henderson placed her items on the counter with deliberate precision, arranging them in a specific order that seemed important to her. As Melissa began the standard return process, she noticed something immediately wrong. The first item, a box of cornflakes, had been opened and the contents appeared to have been replaced with some kind of soggy, unidentifiable substance that bore no resemblance to cereal. Before Melissa could ask about the obvious tampering, Mrs. Henderson launched into an aggressive explanation about the product being defective and her right to a full refund. Her voice carried an edge of barely contained anger, and she spoke rapidly as if she had rehearsed this conversation multiple times. When Melissa politely explained that returns required receipts and that open food products had specific return policies, Mrs. Henderson became increasingly agitated. She claimed to be a loyal customer who deserved special treatment and insisted that the store policies did not apply to someone of her standing in the community. The situation escalated quickly when Melissa discovered that the second item, a bottle of shampoo, was nearly empty and had been refilled with what appeared to be dish soap mixed with an unknown liquid that gave off a sharp chemical smell. Mrs. Henderson insisted that the shampoo had caused an allergic reaction and demanded compensation beyond just a refund. Melissa radioed for her supervisor, Greg Martinez, who arrived to find Mrs. Henderson becoming increasingly vocal about corporate conspiracy and deliberate product sabotage. Greg attempted to calm the situation by offering a one-time courtesy refund without receipts, but Mrs. Henderson refused to accept anything less than full cash reimbursement plus additional compensation for her alleged suffering. As the argument continued, other customers began to gather, some filming the interaction with their phones. Mrs. Henderson seemed energized by the attention, raising her voice and making sweeping accusations about the store deliberately selling contaminated products to unsuspecting customers. The third item in her cart revealed the depth of the problem. A frozen dinner package that should have contained a complete meal instead held what appeared to be pet food, mixed with household cleaning products, all carefully repackaged and resealed. The smell from this item was so strong that Melissa had to step back from the counter. Greg made the decision to process the return immediately, more concerned about de-escalating the situation than following proper procedures. But Mrs. Henderson was not finished. She began pulling additional items from her cart, each one more disturbing than the last. Containers of expired products that had been refilled with unknown substances, packages of crackers that rattled with what sounded like broken glass, and personal care items that had clearly been used and inadequately cleaned before attempted return. The breaking point came when Mrs. Henderson produced a baby formula container that had been emptied and refilled with a mixture that included what appeared to be pet medications and household chemicals. Melissa recognized several of the component smells from her experience with cleaning products, but there were other odors she could not identify that made her genuinely concerned for public safety. At this point, Greg called store security and the local health department. Mrs. Henderson responded by becoming increasingly paranoid, accusing the staff of conspiring against her and threatening to contact corporate headquarters and local news outlets. She claimed that the store was part of a larger plot to poison customers and that her returns were evidence of this conspiracy. Security arrived to find Mrs. Henderson barricaded behind her shopping cart, which she had positioned defensively in front of the customer service counter. She was holding what appeared to be a spray bottle filled with an unknown liquid and threatening to use it if anyone tried to remove her from the store. The police were called when Mrs. Henderson began spraying the unknown substance in the direction of employees and customers. The chemical smell intensified dramatically, causing several people to evacuate the front of the store while complaining of burning eyes and respiratory irritation. Hazmat specialists arrived within an hour to find Mrs. Henderson sitting calmly in the parking lot, having apparently exhausted her supply of whatever chemicals she had been carrying. Testing of the substances she had brought revealed a dangerous mixture of household cleaners, expired medications, and industrial chemicals that could have caused serious harm if ingested or if they had made contact with skin. The investigation that followed revealed that Mrs. Henderson had been living in a hoarding situation for several years, with her home filled with expired food products, damaged merchandise, and dangerous chemical mixtures. She had been systematically purchasing items from multiple Walmart locations, contaminating them with her homemade chemical combinations, and attempting to return them for refunds. Her motivation appeared to be a complex mixture of mental illness, financial desperation, and genuine delusion that the store was deliberately selling contaminated products. In her mind, she was exposing a corporate conspiracy by demonstrating how easy it was to return obviously tampered merchandise. The health department found evidence that Mrs. Henderson had been conducting her contamination activities for months, potentially exposing dozens of employees and customers to dangerous chemical mixtures. Several people who had been present during the incident required medical attention for chemical exposure, and the customer service area had to be professionally decontaminated before it could be reopened. Mrs. Henderson was ultimately placed in protective custody and received mental health treatment. But the investigation revealed that she had attempted similar returns at multiple retail locations throughout the Phoenix area. Her activities had gone unnoticed for so long because individual employees had processed her returns as isolated incidents rather than recognizing the pattern of deliberate contamination. For Melissa, the experience fundamentally changed her approach to customer service. She learned to trust her instincts when something seemed wrong and to prioritize safety over customer satisfaction when dealing with potentially dangerous situations. The incident became part of training materials used to educate new employees about recognizing signs of product tampering and handling customers who might pose health risks. The Mrs. Henderson case, as it became known among staff, served as a reminder that the retail environment could expose employees to dangers far beyond difficult customers or simple theft. Sometimes the greatest threats came from people whose mental health issues manifested in ways that put entire communities at risk, and recognizing these situations required vigilance that went far beyond standard customer service training. Melissa never forgot the smell of those contaminated products, or the look in Mrs. Henderson's eyes when she realized her conspiracy had been exposed. It was a combination of triumph and terror that suggested she genuinely believed she was protecting the public from a danger that existed only in her deteriorating mind. Sarah Kim was part of the closing crew at a Portland Walmart, tasked with cleaning up after the day shift. But some messes are not accidents, and what Sarah discovered during her routine cleaning rounds would haunt her for years to come. Working the closing shift at Walmart meant arriving at 10 p.m. and staying until the store was ready for the next business day. Sarah had been part of the overnight cleaning and restocking team for 6 months, long enough to develop efficient routines for her assigned sections of the store. Her responsibilities included the grocery aisles, pharmacy area, and the customer service section near the front entrance. Sarah actually preferred the overnight shift despite the unconventional hours. The store was closed to customers, which meant she could work without interruptions, and the smaller crew created a more collegial atmosphere than the chaotic day shift. The work was physically demanding but straightforward, involving everything from mopping floors and sanitizing surfaces to restocking shelves and organizing merchandise that customers had left in the wrong locations. On a Tuesday night in October, Sarah was working her usual section when she noticed something unusual in aisle 7, where the cleaning supplies and household chemicals were located. Someone had spilled what appeared to be bleach on the floor, creating a strong chemical odor that made her eyes water. The spill was extensive, covering several feet of the aisle, and there were empty containers scattered nearby that suggested deliberate rather than accidental spillage. Sarah cordoned off the area and began the cleanup process, but as she worked, she realized that the spill was more complex than it initially appeared. The bleach had been mixed with other household chemicals, creating a dangerous combination that could produce toxic fumes. The empty containers showed evidence of multiple different products being combined, including ammonia-based cleaners that should never be mixed with bleach. While documenting the incident for her supervisor, Sarah noticed that similar chemical spills had occurred in the same general area over the past several weeks. Her fellow crew members confirmed that they had been finding unusual chemical combinations throughout the store, always in sections where household cleaning products were sold. The pattern suggested that someone was systematically experimenting with dangerous chemical mixtures using products from the store's inventory. Sarah reported her observations to the overnight manager, Carlos Delgado, who initially dismissed the concerns as coincidental accidents by customers who did not understand proper chemical handling. But when Sarah showed him the documentation she had been keeping of the various incidents, Carlos agreed that the pattern was too consistent to be accidental. The investigation began when Carlos reviewed security footage from the times when the chemical incidents had occurred. What he discovered was deeply disturbing. The same individual appeared on camera during multiple incidents, a man in his 30s who would enter the store during busy periods and systematically collect various cleaning products. Instead of purchasing the items, he would take them to secluded areas of the store and combine them in ways that created dangerous chemical reactions. The security footage showed the man conducting what appeared to be deliberate experiments, mixing products in store aisles and then abandoning the results for employees to discover later. He seemed to be testing different combinations to see which ones produced the strongest reactions, and he was careful to position himself away from security cameras during the actual mixing process. More concerning was the discovery that the man had been gradually escalating his activities. Early incidents involved small amounts of household chemicals mixed in relatively safe combinations. But recent experiments had involved larger quantities of more dangerous substances, and the chemical reactions were becoming increasingly volatile. Sarah continued her cleaning duties while the investigation proceeded, but she began finding evidence of the man's activities in other parts of the store. In the pharmacy section, she discovered empty bottles of rubbing alcohol and hydrogen peroxide that had been hidden behind other products. The automotive department showed signs that someone had been accessing antifreeze and other automotive chemicals after hours. The most alarming discovery came when Sarah was cleaning the employee break room and found a notebook that had been hidden inside one of the lockers. The notebook contained detailed recipes for chemical combinations, including instructions for creating explosive devices using common household materials. The handwriting matched notes found at the sites of previous chemical spills. The notebook revealed that the perpetrator was not randomly experimenting with chemicals but was following a systematic plan to create increasingly dangerous combinations. Some of the recipes involved materials that could be used to manufacture bombs, while others were designed to create toxic gases that could cause serious harm to anyone who encountered them. Carlos immediately contacted the Portland Police Department and the FBI, who treated the notebook as evidence of potential domestic terrorism. The chemical experiments that Sarah had been cleaning up were revealed to be test runs for much more serious planned attacks, possibly targeting the store itself or other locations in the Portland area. The investigation expanded when authorities discovered that the same individual had been conducting similar experiments at multiple retail locations throughout Oregon and Washington. The pattern of chemical spills that Sarah had identified was part of a larger operation involving stores across the Pacific Northwest, suggesting a coordinated effort to develop weapons using readily available commercial chemicals. Federal investigators explained that retail stores like Walmart were attractive targets for this type of activity because they sold large quantities of chemicals that could be combined to create explosive or toxic substances. The perpetrator had been using multiple stores to avoid detection while gathering the materials and knowledge necessary for more serious attacks. Sarah was asked to testify before a federal grand jury about her observations and the pattern of incidents she had documented. Her meticulous record-keeping of the chemical spills had provided crucial evidence that helped investigators understand the scope and timeline of the perpetrator's activities. The man responsible was eventually identified as Marcus Webb, a former chemistry student who had been expelled from Portland State University for conducting unauthorized experiments that violated safety protocols. Webb had been using retail stores as laboratories while developing plans to attack government buildings and other public facilities in the Portland area. Webb's arrest prevented what federal investigators described as a planned series of chemical attacks that could have killed or injured hundreds of people. The materials he had been testing in Walmart aisles were components for devices intended to release toxic gases in crowded public spaces, including shopping centers, schools, and government offices. The investigation revealed that Webb had specifically targeted overnight cleaning crews like Sarah's team because he knew that any dangerous chemical reactions would be discovered by employees rather than customers, reducing the risk that his experimental activities would be interrupted by emergency responses or store closures. Sarah's role in exposing the plot made her a target for threats from Webb's associates, requiring her to relocate and change her identity for several months while the FBI continued their investigation. The stress of being involved in a domestic terrorism case, combined with the knowledge that she had been unknowingly cleaning up test sites for planned mass casualties, led Sarah to quit her job at Walmart and seek different employment. The incident led to significant changes in security protocols at retail stores throughout the region. Walmart implemented new procedures for monitoring purchases of chemical products, tracking unusual patterns of chemical spills, and training employees to recognize signs of dangerous chemical experimentation. The cleaning crews received specialized training in identifying hazardous chemical combinations and reporting procedures for suspicious activities. For Sarah, the experience fundamentally changed her understanding of the risks associated with retail work. What she had assumed were routine cleaning tasks had actually involved exposure to dangerous chemical weapons being developed by a domestic terrorist. The mundane work of mopping floors and organizing shelves had placed her at the center of a plot that could have resulted in mass casualties. The case became a training example used by federal law enforcement agencies to educate retail workers about recognizing signs of chemical terrorism activities. Sarah's careful documentation and willingness to report unusual patterns had prevented a catastrophic attack, demonstrating how frontline employees could serve as crucial early warning systems for domestic terrorism threats. Years later, Sarah still struggles with anxiety when she encounters chemical odors or has to clean up spills in her current job. The knowledge that ordinary household chemicals can be transformed into weapons of mass destruction has made her hypervigilant about seemingly innocuous substances. She never again worked in retail, choosing instead to pursue employment in environments where the risks were more predictable and the dangers more obvious. The Webb case highlighted the vulnerability of retail environments to exploitation by individuals planning attacks on public spaces. The easy access to chemical materials, combined with the predictable patterns of employee routines, created opportunities for dangerous experimentation that went unnoticed until Sarah's careful observation revealed the systematic nature of the threat. Sarah's story serves as a reminder that terrorism can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances and that the vigilance of individual employees can be the difference between successful attacks and prevented tragedies. Her willingness to document unusual patterns and report her concerns to supervisors had saved countless lives, though she never anticipated that her routine cleaning duties would place her at the center of a domestic terrorism investigation. The experience taught Sarah that in the modern world, no job is truly routine, and that employees in all industries must be prepared to recognize and report activities that might seem unusual or dangerous. The retail environment that she had considered safe and predictable had been transformed into a testing ground for weapons of mass destruction, and only her attention to detail had prevented a catastrophic outcome. Marcus Johnson thought he was prepared for the chaos of Black Friday at his Minneapolis Walmart. 5 years of retail experience, crowd control training, the works. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened in electronics that morning. Marcus had been working at the Walmart Supercenter on Penn Avenue North for 2 years, starting as a cart attendant and working his way up to electronics department supervisor. He had survived 4 previous Black Friday events, which meant he understood the intensity of the shopping frenzy that descended on retail stores every November. But the 2023 Black Friday would be different from anything he had experienced before. The preparation for Black Friday at Walmart began weeks in advance. Management scheduled extra security personnel, mapped out crowd control barriers, and briefed employees on safety protocols designed to prevent the kind of stampedes and violence that had occurred at other retail locations during previous holiday shopping events. Marcus attended multiple training sessions focused on de-escalation techniques and emergency procedures. The electronics department was always one of the most contested areas during Black Friday sales. Television deals, gaming consoles, and smartphone promotions drew massive crowds of customers who had been waiting outside the store since the middle of the night. Marcus had helped design the layout for the electronics section, creating clear pathways and establishing multiple stations where customers could process purchases to avoid bottlenecks at a single register. The doors opened at 5 a.m. to a crowd of approximately 800 people who had been gathered in the parking lot since midnight. The initial rush proceeded according to plan, with customers moving through predetermined routes toward their target merchandise. Marcus positioned himself near the gaming console display, which historically generated the most aggressive customer behavior. The first sign of trouble came when Marcus noticed that several customers in the electronics crowd were not behaving like typical Black Friday shoppers. While most people were focused on specific deals and moved with purpose toward particular products, a group of about 12 individuals seemed more interested in the crowd dynamics than the merchandise. They positioned themselves strategically throughout the electronics section and appeared to be communicating with each other through subtle gestures. Marcus had been trained to recognize organized retail crime, and the behavior patterns he observed suggested that this group was coordinating some kind of scheme. But their activities did not match typical shoplifting or theft operations. Instead, they seemed to be manipulating the crowd itself, creating artificial bottlenecks and encouraging aggressive behavior among legitimate customers. At 6:15 a.m., the situation began to escalate rapidly. A customer dispute over a discounted television quickly spread to involve dozens of people as members of the suspicious group began shouting accusations and encouraging others to take sides in the conflict. What should have been a simple disagreement about purchase procedures became a heated confrontation involving multiple families. Marcus radioed for additional security support and attempted to calm the situation by explaining the store's Black Friday policies over his portable speaker system. But the organized group began spreading false information about limited quantities and time restrictions, creating panic among customers who feared they would miss out on advertised deals. The breaking point came when someone in the crowd shouted that the store was running out of gaming consoles and that employees were secretly holding inventory for preferred customers. This claim was completely false, but it triggered a surge of customers toward the electronics counter, where Marcus was positioned. The organized group used this moment to escalate the chaos by pushing through the crowd and claiming that other customers were cutting in line. Within minutes, the electronics section had descended into complete pandemonium. Customers were shoving each other, grabbing merchandise directly from other shoppers, and demanding that employees intervene in disputes that were becoming increasingly physical. The crowd control barriers that had been carefully positioned to maintain order were knocked over as people pushed forward to claim their purchases. Marcus found himself trapped behind the electronics counter as dozens of angry customers pressed forward, demanding immediate service. Several members of the organized group had positioned themselves at the front of the crowd and were making increasingly aggressive demands while encouraging other customers to join their complaints. The noise level made it impossible for Marcus to communicate effectively with security or management. The situation reached a critical point when fighting broke out near the television display. What began as a shoving match between two customers quickly spread as the organized group began encouraging others to join the conflict. Marcus watched in horror as elderly shoppers were knocked down and children were separated from their parents in the chaos. When Marcus attempted to restore order by announcing over the public address system that everyone would be served and that there was sufficient inventory for all advertised deals, members of the organized group began shouting that he was lying and that the store was deliberately creating shortages to drive up demand. Their accusations were designed to increase customer frustration and maintain the chaotic atmosphere. Store security arrived to find a full-scale riot in progress. Customers were fighting over merchandise, displays had been overturned, and several people required medical attention for injuries sustained in the crush of bodies. The organized group had achieved their apparent goal of creating maximum disruption while positioning themselves to exploit the chaos for their own benefit. As police officers entered the electronics section to restore order, Marcus observed the organized group systematically looting merchandise, while other customers and security personnel were distracted by the fighting. They had used the Black Friday crowd as cover for a sophisticated theft operation that relied on creating enough chaos to overwhelm the store's security capabilities. The aftermath revealed the full scope of what had occurred. The 12 individuals who had manipulated the crowd were part of an organized retail crime ring that specialized in using holiday shopping events to steal large quantities of electronics. They had studied previous Black Friday incidents and developed tactics specifically designed to create stampede conditions that would allow them to operate undetected. During the investigation, police discovered that the same group had executed similar operations at multiple retail stores throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin during the previous holiday season. Their method involved infiltrating legitimate Black Friday crowds, identifying high-value targets, and then systematically creating the chaos necessary to facilitate large-scale theft. Marcus testified in court about his observations during the incident and the sophisticated nature of the group's coordination. The evidence he provided helped prosecutors demonstrate that this was not a spontaneous riot, but a calculated criminal operation designed to exploit both the store and innocent customers who became unwilling participants in the scheme. The physical and emotional toll of the incident was severe for everyone involved. Several customers sustained injuries requiring hospitalization, including an elderly woman who suffered a broken hip when she was knocked down during the initial surge toward the electronics counter. Marcus himself required treatment for anxiety and stress-related symptoms that developed in the weeks following the incident. The Black Friday incident fundamentally changed security protocols at Walmart stores throughout the region. New policies required increased law enforcement presence during major sale events, improved crowd control barriers, and enhanced training for employees to recognize signs of organized retail crime operations that might exploit holiday shopping chaos. For Marcus, the experience destroyed his sense of safety in the retail environment. The knowledge that criminal organizations were actively working to weaponize customer excitement and turn shopping events into opportunities for violence and theft made him constantly vigilant about crowd behavior and suspicious activities. He eventually transferred to a different department where he had less direct interaction with large groups of customers. The case became a training example used throughout the retail industry to educate employees about the difference between normal Black Friday chaos and deliberately orchestrated criminal activities. Marcus's detailed observations had provided crucial evidence that helped law enforcement understand how organized retail crime groups were evolving their tactics to exploit major shopping events. The incident highlighted the vulnerability of both retail employees and customers to exploitation by criminal organizations that had studied and learned to manipulate the predictable patterns of holiday shopping behavior. What should have been a celebration of consumer culture had become a battlefield where innocent people were used as unwilling participants in sophisticated criminal schemes designed to generate maximum profit while causing maximum harm to individuals and businesses alike. Marcus never worked another Black Friday shift, and he never again viewed large crowds of customers as simply enthusiastic shoppers. The experience taught him that in the modern retail environment, employees must be prepared to recognize and respond to threats that go far beyond simple theft or customer service challenges, including organized criminal operations designed to exploit the very systems meant to serve and protect both workers and customers.